Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of The Wake Up. Good to be back here on this Monday morning. We got a lot of great stuff coming your way. We're starting with Afghanistan. We're starting with Hong Kong today. And we're going to move on to some pretty interesting stuff because we do have some pretty interesting stuff for you today. A lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool stories. Thank you so much for rejoining us here today. We also have another news flash coming out for you a little bit late. I do apologize for that. News flash coming out for you today later as well. All right, so yeah, that's a little bit of what is in store for today. We start, though, as I mentioned, with China and Hong Kong. A buildup of troops across the border as the semi-autonomous territory of Hong Kong obviously has been convulsed by protests. As a reminder that the use of force remains an option for Beijing. They're still ready, and they're definitely not going to give up that use of force option very soon, because it is probably one of the rare times that the Chinese government, as they obviously have made the trade really for civil liberties in favor of they gave up to the Chinese people to their civil liberties in favor of massive economic gains, a lot of economic growth, and stuff like that. So that's why they're still, I think, really able to be functioning, because of that economic growth. And if it does slow down, we may see continuing discontent, especially with the younger people, as most discontent starts. It doesn't start with old people. They're mostly happy with their lives. I mean, they're never really seen a revolution led by old people. Just a thought. At least recently. There may be something that I haven't thought of, but still, a lot of student organizers, student protesters. Just a fun little thought I just had, kind of out of random. But the deployment of in Shenzhen within sight of Hong Kong's skyline does not appear to be a prelude to military intervention. But few analysts expressed doubt that China would act if the country's leader Xi Jinping believed that sovereignty over Hong Kong was jeopardized. They're not playing around. They're going to hold on to this territory absolutely, no matter what is going to happen. And I think it's going to be very important for the international community to keep a close eye on them and make sure that they fall through on that. And I mean, you can't really trust Trump to do anything. You really can't trust. I mean, sure, he may do something, but with Trump, you never know. You just never know. You can't rely on him in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion. I mean, if anyone else does something, I think that'd be very good, especially if he tries to use military action. Just keep a close eye on what the protesters are doing, how they're being treated, how they're being responded to, and it'd be very interesting to see the world response, and hopefully it'll be a good, clear, and concise response if things, in fact, do get violent in the Chinese military. Well, obviously they have already been violent, but if the Chinese military takes it to another level. So organizers yesterday, interestingly enough, estimated that 1.7 million people marched through Hong Kong, defying a police ban. The police put the number of protesters at 128,000. So not quite the 1.7 million people, but yeah, I'm sure. I know. I really trust the police on this. Yeah, that's for sure. No, yeah, it was a huge amount of people. If you look, check, Google it, check out the news there. It was an insane amount of people covering city parks. It was everywhere. New York Times actually reviews dozens of episodes in Hong Kong involving tear gas and found the police at times used methods that experts described as indiscriminate and excessive. No surprise there. They don't really seem to care much for who they're gassing, just that they do use it. Beijing is increasingly pressuring companies to take its side in this dispute. Local and global businesses are falling in line, and their employees, some even in Hong Kong, are caught in the middle because China, they hold a lot of sway. They really do, because especially global businesses with a lot of power and a lot of need for influence with Beijing. If they get all those businesses to fall in line, that could be even more effective. And you don't even have to raise an army about it. It's going to be that simple. And that could be an interesting omen, a disturbing omen for what could happen next. Time to move on to a very tough story to hear about in Afghanistan. A really, really sad situation. A wedding, suicide bombing attack killed 63 this past weekend. Hundreds were wounded as well. The type of event that's really largely being expected from daily violence in the country. On Sunday, the Islamic State claimed responsibility for the attack, which comes as American negotiators are finalizing a deal with the Taliban insurgents to withdraw U.S. forces. Although the Taliban wage most violence in Afghanistan, the Islamic State, which is not allied with the Taliban, has established a foothold in the country. Unlike the Taliban, the Sunni extremists of the Islamic State often hit Shiite targets to foment division. So, I mean, again, it's absolutely no regard for human life or really, or who's just trying to, like, I mean, the mind of someone who would hit a wedding is probably so far gone, it is not even funny. So at a time of rising alarm over white supremacist violence in the U.S., farmers market in Bloomington, Indiana has been jolted by allegations that the two longtime sellers there are white nationalists, which is going to be, it's a very interesting dynamic to probably keep an eye on. It's like, what happens if the guy you see at the butcher's every day, or the guy you see at the bakery every day is a white nationalist? Like, how does that resonate with you? Because especially if you're someone who is more liberal minded, like, how does that hit you? How do you react to that? And that could be something that a lot of us may soon have to deal with once we find out more of this and more about our fellow man here. Activists say federal court records and the leaked archives of a far-right message board connect the owners of the Schooner Creek Farm to an organization that promotes white nationalism and white American identity. The owners are a married couple and deny the accusations and say that they are being harassed over a handful of mildly pro-white comments. The market in Bloomington, a town of 85,000 that's home to Indiana University, reopened this weekend after being suspended over public safety concerns. Yeah, so far-right groups faced off with anti-fascist protesters in Portland, Oregon over the weekend as well, the latest in a series of occasionally violent political demonstrations in the city, which is it's really interesting to be in Portland now because that's the home for fascist movement and, of course, in response, Antifa coming out there and actually protesting them. And, yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting to see some of the kind of takes that come out, especially from more centrist people, people who want to say, well, I mean, I generally broadly support Antifa's message, but I wish they weren't doing like this, da-da-da-da-da. Like, and again, the question I have for these people is, what are you actually doing to fight the rising tide of fascism? What are you doing to make a difference? And if it's anything beginning with tweets, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear any criticism for the Antifa people who are out there actually showing these people that we're not just going to bend to their will that easily just because their president is in power. Obviously never a fan of violence, but there is definitely I think an important element to what these people are doing, and it's sort of bravery, of course, as well in fighting these people. So Julian Castro, let's see what he's up to. The former San Antonio mayor, as you may know, probably don't, but as you may know, he burst on the national stage in 2012 after a primetime speech during the DNC, similar to the star-making address that Obama gave in 2004, as he seeks the Democratic nomination for president. Castro is trying to recapture that spotlight and convince his party that his Latino appeal and relative moderation will resonate across a divided nation. Try again, not going to happen. All right. Anyway, let's go to the next story. Where an Illinois state senator, Martin Sandoval of Chicago, is apologizing after someone posted a photo of a mock assassination of a man wearing a Donald Trump mask and a mariachi suit at one of his fundraisers. The photo series shows a profile of a man with a large toy weapon pointed at and shooting the faux Trump figure. The mock assassination drew bipartisan condemnation, including from Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway, who tweeted the photos, suggesting that every Democrat should be asked if they support or disavow that act. Oh, wow. Sandoval issued a formal apology. The incident that took place is unacceptable. I don't condone violence toward the president or anybody else. Honestly, really not a big deal to me. It's just people showing that they don't like Trump. And I'm sure, I mean, literally, there's been Republican celebrities who've threatened to kill the presidents, or like Ted Nugent threatening to like kill Hillary Clinton, have her like stuck on my machine gun or whatever. Like, that's something that is it's we're too far gone for that to even matter anymore. Like, Jesus, Kellyanne, come on, we're better than that. Like, jeez. Yeah, so here's a funny one. Sarah Netanyahu, the wife of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, is reported to have been restrained at her own security by her own security detail on an El Al flight to Ukraine after she originally tried to storm the cockpit to demand respect from the pilots. Israel's Channel 12 News reported the incident, describing how Netanyahu rose from her seat and angrily requested access to the cockpit. She is said to have been escorted back to her seat without incident, but a short time later, the pilots did acknowledge both Netanyahus, who are in Ukraine for a 2-day state visit. The Prime Minister's office gave a watered-down denial of the events, saying, quote, "This is a distorted publication. There was a misunderstanding, which was immediately clarified, and the flight went according to plan. The story about the security guards, well, that is a total lie, blah, blah, blah." And, yeah, so, I mean, do they not, like, fly private or whatever? Like Jesus Christ. But again, give me respect. Sarah Netanyahu wants acknowledgement, which is, again, I mean, come on. It's pretty much, it's, I wouldn't say surprising. Let's just put it that way. That's where he said, wouldn't say surprising there. That's from reporting from the Jewish Post. All right, so police in 3 U.S. states stopped men with motives, guns, and ammunition who intended to carry out mass shootings over the weekend, according to CNN. Brandon Wagshaw, arrested in Norwalk, Connecticut, after expressing interest on his Facebook page of carrying out a mass shooting. He's been held on 4 counts of illegal possession of large-capacity magazines. Tristan Scott Wicks was arrested in Dayton, Florida, after his ex-girlfriend alerted authorities that he wrote her intending to commit a mass shooting by firing into a crowd. "A good 100 kills would be nice," he allegedly wrote. Police say that they recovered a 22 caliber hunting rifle and 400 rounds of ammunition in his apartment. Jesus. James Patrick Reardon intended to shoot up the Youngstown Jewish Community Center. Reardon had tagged the Jewish facility in a fake post about the shooting that he intended to carry out in which he identified himself as the assailant. Police say that they found a cache of weapons and ammunition in his home. All 3 men will be arraigned early this week. So that's from CNN there with that report there. Very, very disturbing. The fact 3 men want to carry out mass shootings in just 1 week. And it's like, what? What? I do not get it. I mean, it's just the fact that there's so many of these people. And the fact, again, there is a certain disturbing element to the fact that they know that many people exist and they're all planning these horrific events on this week, especially after a week where 2 weeks ago, where we just had all these mass shootings that took place. I mean, I really don't think it's much of a surprise that they have all these access to the guns. And I mean, investigators really and experts are saying, like, you got to look at the high capacity magazines, because those are where, like, that is where all the damage comes in. And you get these high intensity magazines, ability to fire off so quickly, put into civilian hands. And if it's in civilian hands, you get in the hands of people like these 3 that want to go out there and make all these killings. And just starting with that would be so important. And I mean, you got to go after the root of the problem. It's not the people, it is the guns. The people, there are definitely people who want to do these things, people who are sick, people who have these problems. But their job would be made a lot less easy if they took away the access to fire like 100 rounds a second or something ridiculous like that. I think it's just that simple. Yeah. So, all right. Now we turn to the White House, where there is some interesting stuff going on, and people, what they want you to believe over there is that there is no recession coming, guys. No recession coming. Because if you don't remember, I think we talked about it on the last show. The yield curve flipped, and people are freaking out now. It's not good. Yeah, so Kudlow says, let's not be afraid of optimism. I don't see a recession at all. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow added on Fox News Sunday. Navarro still says tariffs aren't hurting consumers. They're not hurting anybody here. They're hurting China. They're slashing their prices. It's not true. Economists at Harvard University and the University of Chicago, the International Monetary Fund, and the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston found that tariffs are effectively tax increases on America, probably like getting out that 10 cents that the Trump tax cuts gave, quote-unquote, average people. That probably cancels that out by now, at least. Trump also said, I'm prepared for everything when asked about a recession. But he did say to Felicia Somez of the Washington Post, I don't see a recession. I mean, the world is in